Hello Scorpio, Scorpio rising and Scorpio moon people. This is your monthly astrological horoscope for April 2017. And a quick reminder, if you guys remember, these horoscopes are for big sweeping shifts, you know, the big themes of the month. And sometimes even things that could be going on all the way up through the next 3 to 6 months, especially when it comes to what's happening here in April. And so if you're interested in much more shorter term, sort of, daily or weekly aspects, I highly recommend checking out your weekly horoscopes. The first half is dedicated exclusively to astrology, and if you're interested in those, again, those are right here on this channel. And of course, if you'd ever like to get a session, you can always follow the links below, or go to integrativemysticism.com. So what's going on with April? Well, you probably are well aware that there's a lot of retrogrades going on this month, but I don't want that to sort of sour you to how good this month could be, because 2 of these retrogrades are actually going to be a relief for everybody. And a lot of people might not necessarily see or understand that, because it's just, sometimes retrogrades are kind of, they're portrayed in a very black or white, oversimplified way, and that's just not how it goes. Alright, so we're just going to dive in, and I'm just going to have to show you. Alright, so on the 2nd of April, we have Venus, still retrograde, sliding all the way back into Pisces, into your 5th house of love, romance, and your relationships with children. And for the first 2 weeks of the month, and just for the first 2 weeks of the month, Venus retrograde can be a bit of a pain. It's definitely more of a pain kind of retrograde, because Venus retrograde tends to vibrate on the big 3 no-nos when it comes to issues that could come up in a couple, or again in a parent-child relationship. We've got insecurity, trust issues, and abandonment issues. Focus on instant gratification and temptation. And sometimes temptation can be the temptation to, even malign, or to get into a fight, or to maybe the temptation to let things slide a little bit when you have Venus retrograde in Pisces in particular. And over the first 2 weeks, we may be noticing that we are letting way too much slide within ourselves, or our partner, or our kids. Sometimes with Venus retrograde, we do whatever it takes to keep the peace instead of solving the problem. There could be some issues going on where we may feel like we're a bit of an enabler, and it's important to not allow that to be. We also have with Venus retrograde, though, be careful for those of you who are single. People are going to be tempted to, just rush relationships during a Venus retrograde. They want to have it now because they think it's going to be more secure, but now an instant gratification is no guarantee of secure. I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times, people get together, people break up, people get married, people get divorced, people move in, people move out, so it's important to understand that a rush is not going to make things better, and you may have some people pressuring you to make rushed decisions, even people you're already in relationships with, to make rushed decisions that have no business being rushed during this time. So, hold strong, keep it together, focus on the longevity, the security, the safety, and the sanity of a good relationship with Venus retrograde, because it can kind of make things a little bit difficult to deal with. Luckily, after the 15th of the month, it's night and day, and Venus goes direct in this area, and all of a sudden it's all love, it's all lovey-dovey, and all of the Venus retrograde stuff from the first 2 weeks just seems like a bad memory and a bad nightmare. Because in the last 2 weeks of the month, we've got things more amorous, we've got more affection, we've got people going out of their way to be more generous with each other in your 5th house, again, when it comes to love and romance, your relationships with your kids. People are more empathetic, people are more connected. And so we just got to make it to the 15th in order to see that shift and that change. And that's going to be a really nice energy going up until about the 28th. So it's like we do get the but then we've got a good 2 weeks of and that is, that's my vocabulary today, apparently. On the 6th, we have Saturn turning retrograde in Sagittarius, in your 2nd house of earned income. And this is going to be a really nice treat for the next few months for a lot of you Scorpio people, because with Saturn in your 2nd house, you may have been noticing a lot of restrictions and a lot more expenses coming up because of Saturn in that 2nd house. It's one of those infamous textbook astrology situations where it really does make it hard to drum up extra funds. You may be finding that a lot of unexpected expenses come up during this time. We're being told to tighten our belts, and luckily we're on the last run of this. This Saturn here, this is the last year it's going to be here for 30 years, but we get a break starting in April all the way up for the next 3 months. Saturn going retrograde in your 2nd house. Whatever's been blocking you from actually getting that extra money, whether it's getting that extra money from the new job that you want, getting that extra money from, possibly even, negotiating a raise, curbing expenses, cutting things down, getting yourself out of expensive situations, or averting pricey problems that kind of come up in your life. Saturn retrograde for the next few months is going to be leaving you alone, which is exactly what you want to hear. And I think that for a lot of you Scorpio people, here's the perfect example of showing how a retrograde can work in your benefit. So whatever's been inhibiting you, blocking you, keeping you, and holding you back, ball and chain style, from actually being able to fatten your wallet or recover any lost money or deal with any challenges when it comes to the acquisition of a better job or new money, over the next few months, that Saturn oppression is gone. Saturn has left the building for that 3 months, and I want you to be able to take full advantage of it, because now is the time to catch up and get ahead. On the 9th of the month, we've got Mercury going retrograde in your 7th house of your closest one-on-one relationships. Alright, so this is your best friend, your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, business partner, roommate, anyone that you spend all of that close one-on-one time with. And with Mercury retrograde in the partnership sector, it doesn't necessarily have to be too bad, but we have to be careful, because there will be an opportunity to reconnect with old friends, old business partners, old lovers and things like that. But it's important not to make any snap judgments about how good it's going to be. Sometimes they're just coming back to finish something up and move on, kind of very similarly to that Venus retrograde. But with Mercury retrograde in the partnership sector, this is somebody that I think that may actually have a closer tie with you. And also with Mercury retrograde in the 7th, this could be a chance to do a wake-up call for a lot of you Scorpios out there to pay attention. If you're single and you've been turning down people left and right because you're trying to get them to fit a mold, during Mercury retrograde, you're going to get a second chance with some people you probably should not have turned down or walked away from in the first place. I don't care how many comments you're going to write about how you're justified. You might want to keep an open mind, because this is also going to be a month of second chances. For those of you who are curious about what that means, I'm not talking about exes. I'm talking about people who never got the chance, who deserve the chance. For those of you who are currently coupled, Mercury retrograde is not necessarily going to be hurting you and your partner so much, except that you may be noticing that your partner kind of trying to reclaim some aspect or element of their glory days this month, or maybe even you're trying to reclaim your glory days this month. But both of you have got to make sure that we keep the other person in mind, and we can't turn it into a tug of war over who's the relationship all about. Alright. On the 11th of the month, we've got a full moon occurring in Libra in your 12th house, your privacy, your secrets, your hidden zone, your past. And this is sort of what I call, and everyone hears me say this, it's the yearly breakdown, breakthrough, full moon. Okay, this is where emotions can kind of come up because there's a huge push for closure. And sometimes we're not ready for closure, sometimes we're not ready processing certain feelings. And with the full moon in the 12th house, this can be stuff that is long old issues, maybe not even dealing with any of the people that you're dealing with right now. And sometimes we have those people or those situations almost be on repeat. It's almost going to feel like we're reliving that circumstance, reliving that job situation, reliving that relationship, reliving that family cycle. And, from the 11th to the 25th, it's important to catch yourself in a cycle. It's a breakdown, breakthrough, because it may hurt to go through it, hurt to own it, and then feel pretty dang good to have that breakthrough and release it. But you're catching yourself repeating a pattern this month that did not start with you, but needs to end with you. So it's a breakdown, breakthrough. On the 19th of the month, we've got the Sun moving into Taurus, into your 7th house of partnerships, your closest one-on-one relationships again. And with the Sun going in this area, it's actually trying to get more out of your time spent and more love into your life, getting more bonding and tighter, stronger connections with closer one-on-one relationships. And even though Mercury is currently retrograde at that point, the Sun is taking a little bit of the edge off of that Mercury retrograde. It's kind of making it a fun experience, a cathartic experience, a therapeutic experience. The Sun can bring a lot of energy for healing and a lot of energy for fun. There's going to be a big focus on innocence, on recreation the last 2 weeks of this month and the first 2 weeks of May. And a lot of you who may not necessarily be feeling like it's time to become official with somebody may find yourself in a situation where that could be an inevitability. On the 20th of the month, we've got Pluto turning retrograde in your 3rd house of contracts, pacts and promises, commitments, as well as an area that could rule, you know, your relationships with your siblings and cousins, family members in this generation. And with Pluto retrograde, we tend to bring things back from the dead, bring things back from the past, but they're actually because you weren't supposed to leave them behind. And this could actually be an old publishing opportunity, or an old contract, or an old promise that we deserved to have kept for us. Somebody could be trying to fulfill a debt to you during this time. You may be finding out that from now, okay, from the 20th of April all the way up until September, this is a huge, long angle, you're going to be having a lot of nostalgic moments, a lot of blasts from the past, but it's all about people kind of coming back and bringing things back to you, reuniting with you. And with Pluto retrograde, it's important to remember there's always a lesson, though. We can't go forward until we make room for the new thing. So it's important to also make sure that if we're trying to end things, end contracts, end binding agreements, it's important to try and get those done thoroughly. Don't take for granted that somebody's going to say yes in an email or yes in person and call that a good verbal contract. We've got to get these things down on paper, because things might be a little bit slippery. People might not necessarily be as forthright. People might not follow through. People might not get the request in the first place. So there could be a little bit of flub-ups in there, and we don't want to be bound to something or tied down to something that we need to have gone. So in order to finalize completion on things, it needs to be done in a more official way if it's done after the 20th of this month. If you do it in an unofficial way as we get into early April, it's not a big deal. That's no big thing. But if once Pluto's retrograde, like good and retrograde, you need to be careful. On the 21st, we've got Mars, planet of action and energy, going into your 8th house of passive income, shared resources, and self-employment income, as well as intimacy. And carnality is definitely going to be on the menu for a lot of you Scorpio people who are trying to get to rev things up a little bit in the bedroom. It looks like you and the Libra people both are going to be having quite a very, very sensual end of your April. Mars is definitely a little bit more about the carnal and the physical, though, so we're definitely focusing on action. And some of you may only be looking for that right now, which means this is definitely working in your favor. However, if you're looking for more, don't worry, you can get more. We still got so much going on in your commitment zone, it's not even funny. Mars in this area can also boost your earning power when it comes to, again, your supplemental income, your tips, your commissions, anything that you make outside of a fixed salary or hourly income. You may also be noticing that your self-employment opportunities are increasing and paying out bigger during this time. But be careful with Mars. There's a temptation to reinvest too much too soon. So don't be breaking the bank trying to expand, and do not try and spend more to make more with Mars in the 8th house. It doesn't work that way. Just be on the take and on the receive and enjoy it nicely all the way up until the end of May. We also have a new moon in Taurus in your 7th house of partnerships at the very end of the month, and there could be an opportunity to make something official. The timing is a little bit bad when it comes to Mercury retrograde, but it just means we might need to give a little bit more time to this to fully solidify. But making something official does not necessarily have to mean just a romantic relationship we need to wait for. This could be talking about a new business partner, a merger, or possibly even, again, a new living situation if you're looking to maybe rent a space out to a new roommate or have tenants move in, or maybe even an opportunity to reconnect with a new best friend, best buddy. And a lot of this is going to be so instrumental towards the end of this year. Whoever you find at the end of this month is going to be pivotal, I think, towards, for a lot of circumstances that kind of come up after we get Pluto and Saturn direct again. So it's almost like a new character to join your story. Finally, at the end of the month, we've got Venus, planet of love and harmony, moving back into Aries, into your 6th house of work and reputation, and you will be noticing yourself also very, very popular during this time. If you've been feeling like maybe you have gone a little bit obscured, people aren't necessarily paying enough attention or giving you the attention you deserve because Venus is retrograde, a lot of retrogrades, because of Venus is retrograde, or perhaps even Venus slipping out of this area, you may feel like things have gone a bit quiet, people aren't very responsive. Venus is going to be having those people make things up to you at the end of this month, and especially going into the beginning of May, so don't worry, there will be a way to catch up on lost time. So that is your horoscope. I hope you enjoyed it, Scorpio. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. You know I appreciate it. And of course, if you'd like to get a session, you can always follow the links below, and go to integrativemysticism.com.